Start a small business. No need to work 40, 50 hours a week, slaving your life away. Obtain financial freedom, be your own boss, and create your own destiny. Moguls are the new superstars. The path to country club membership and a leased Mercedes-Benz is paved in gold as you take your business trips to Orlando or Vegas. Validation from your in-laws is just an LLC and Facebook business page away. At least, that's what they tell you anyways. Through social media, websites, and targeted ads, you're sold an image. Small business owners seem to walk on water. You'd think you're the last person on earth working a regular job with a regular boss. But there's trouble in paradise, and its name is in over your head. People start looking to start their own business, don't know what they don't know. But that's why we started our Small Business Confidential podcast, to share what we've learned from years of experience. There's not a lot of people in on this, so remember, dear podcast listeners, you heard it here first, off the record, on the QT, and very hush-hush.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Reilly with the Small Business Confidential, and with me again is my sidekick, fellow entrepreneur, and president of his group is BNI, Mike Ferrante. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Glad to be here, Mike.
Okay. So BNI, that's Business Network International.
That's right. Yeah, that's I'm not the president this year, but I've been the president a couple times, and it is a great networking group. Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it before we get into the meat and potatoes of our topic today.
Yeah, well, of course, BNI is responsible for us crossing paths. Many years ago, I got involved in a BNI chapter and I met Lindsay Reilly, and through Lindsay, I met you. But essentially, BNI is a very structured business networking group. It's not like your coffee clutches where you just get together and BS and hand cards out. But the interesting thing about BNI is that only one person per category is allowed. So when the realtor spot opened up in my chapter, I ran right there, applied, I got the slot, and pretty much you cannot find a BNI chapter that doesn't have a realtor, a financial planner, an insurance agent. These are just the categories that are the anchors of a BNI chapter. And because it's a worldwide networking group, referrals get passed back and forth, not only from city to city, state to state, but internationally. I closed a real estate deal last year from a BNI member in Israel.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll talk more about BNI. In fact, I would love to get a few BNI people on this podcast. But, this is our second episode, and we're sticking with macro subjects and not with micro subjects. So our topic today is finding your passion when you go out and start your own business. Really? I mean, is that, and this is one of my, this is, again, the Small Business Confidential. So this is where we blow up all the myths and all the facades about entrepreneurship. And I'll just start off, Mike, and then you can, we'll go back and forth and riff. But when you think about starting your own business, let's say I just love cooking, or I love going out to a restaurant, or I love doing my own lawn, or I love X, Y, or Z. I mean, really, is that a business you want to get into, or is that a hobby?
Yeah,
And
I know where you're going, Mike. My answer is it depends, because as you know, I love to cook, and I had a little coffee shop for a while, and guess what? I was the head cook there, and I hated it. So I know where you're going.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that most people that are successful in entrepreneur, their number one goal direction is to be financially independent. That's why you're doing it. You're not doing it to be a restaurateur. In fact, most restaurant people, they work 60, 80 hours a week and they don't make anything. And it's just grind. And they're just burned out after a while. So when you're thinking about, all right, so what business do I want to really go into? First thing is, what is the market need? That's the key. It's not some sexy, I'm going to be a realtor, I'm going to get into real estate. And we talk about that, the Cleveland real estate investor, just people, there's these, the sexier the business, like realtor, real estate, lawyer, banker, finance, financial planner, boy, they just sound so sexy. But do you really make any money at it at the end of the day? As opposed to, we talked on our first podcast, garbage collector. Okay, not sexy. If you're going to be getting into contracting work, what is the work that is in high demand, where you can charge, a very high fee to take care of that need that nobody, or that itch that nobody else is scratching. And all of a sudden, you're working 40 hours a week and you're making $100 an hour. Okay, so let's just do the math on that. 440 hours times $100 is what? $4,000, Mike?
$4,000.
Okay, times that by 50, because you want to take 2 weeks off to enjoy, your work.
$200,000.
That's $200,000. Now you're going to have expenses, but you're going to keep it real simple, because you're all about making money, not blowing money on some, fancy real estate office space, right? So maybe you're working, initially like Steve Jobs did in the garage, your parents' house. Or let's just say you've got a home office, or let's say you take some, garage that you buy, not rent, buy. So you've got, at least got a little bit of real estate. You've got your Wi-Fi set up there, and don't spend money on business cards. Do not spend money on business cards. Spend money on a great website. And it's not that expensive to put one together. But the absolute number one thing you have to do is you have to find a market need where you will make $100 an hour. Go ahead, jump in there, Mike.
Yeah, well, I think that it's the difference between owning a job and owning a business too. So, we talked about the garbage man analogy, and my brother-in-law who owns a dumpster business. And you ask Steve what he does for a living, he says, well, I'm a garbage man. Well, we know that he's not literally on the back of a truck throwing bags on the back of a truck. He owns a business. Now, he still chooses to work in his business. And I think that's when you start asking bigger questions. So some people may be listening to our podcast, Mike, and saying, yeah, $200,000 a year, that's a good living. But hey, I'm this or that. I could go get a job making that. It is possible to get so you have to ask what the progression is. Do you go from being a fresh-faced kid buying a few dumpsters to now Steve's got 100 boxes that he runs for construction, and another 100 that he runs for trash, and he's got employees and trucks, and so now he owns a business, but he still chooses to work in his business.
Okay.
So I think it's how far you want to take it, and do you want to own a job or do you want to own a business?
Right. Now here's we're getting into a lot of interesting territory here. But first of all, when you say, well, you can go out and get a job where you can make 200,000, no, they're not. Believe me, that's putting you up in the 2%, 5% of the population where you can just walk in and make 200,000. Now, let me ask you a question. This will really jolt everybody, because we want people to keep listening to this. Mike, tell me about your sex life. How many times do you have sex a week? What's your favorite position, and blah, 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 and what kind of porn channels do you work? And of course, you're not going to tell me that. Certainly not on a podcast that's going worldwide, and soon we'll have just thousands of downloads. You're not going to tell me that, and you're also not going to tell me how much you actually make. And the dirty little secrets in life are always your sex life and what you actually make, because people, they don't want to talk about either. And so when you look at the guy across the street who's pulling out in his Audi, or his Mercedes or some high-end car. And maybe he's living in some, 5-bedroom home and this and that. You think this guy's got it made. But in reality, he's living check to check because everything is leveraged. He's leasing his car. He really can't afford the house he's in. And that goes to my favorite book, which everybody's going to hear about, The Millionaire Next Door. But the question is, how much money do you want to be making? And then you do the reverse engineering from that. You always have to establish, now let's take that $200,000 and let's just put that aside. Let's just say when you start your business, you're saying to yourself, I want to make 6 figures. I want to make 100,000. All right. So are you prepared to work 60 hours a week? Weekends, maybe half days, going out, doing some sale calls, whatever, on the road? Are you prepared to work 10 hours, or do you still have that 9 to 5 mentality? Because if you work 60 hours a week, and let's say you're making $30 an hour, and everybody can bring out their calculator, that's going to bring you close to $100,000. Okay? If your really works right, you don't need to make $100 an hour. You can make $30 an hour. Because if you're making some overtime, if you're making an emergency sales call, maybe you're making $60 an hour there, or $50 an hour there. But the reality is, you always have to be aware of what is the end goal for the year. What do you want to make for the year? And then you break it down into 50 weeks. So this week I made 1,000. Okay. All right. So if I made 1,000 and I got 50 weeks to go, I'm making 50,000. All right. As opposed to, wait, 1 week I made 3,000. Okay. So now I'm caught up, because you got to average that 2,000 a week. But the point is, when you set up a business plan, that business plan comes secondary to the number one goal, which is, how much money do I want to make? Then the business plan, then you start piecing it in. But first you have to set that strategic direction, north, south, east, west. And that's the money. And then you work backwards from there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do with our agents, Mike. I run the real estate team, over 30 agents, and each year when we set goals for them, we always start with, how much money do you want to make this year? And then we back into the plan. We don't start with the plan and then say, well, if we do this, how much money will we make? No, we know that we can boil it down to X amount of dollars translates from X number of sales. And how do we get that number of sales? It's by having this many appointments. And how do we get appointments? It's by having conversations. So each year we say, all right, you want to make this much money, you got to have 20 real estate conversations every week. Now, how are you going to get those conversations?
All right. Now I'm gonna cut you off. And that's a great thing for me to jump all over, because we've talked about that on the Cleveland Real Estate Investor. But one of the things is, when you establish those guidelines, first of all, you're establishing direction. I want to make 100,000. Okay.
Yep.
Then you're breaking it down, sales calls each week. But you and I have talked about is, when are you going off the road? When are you wasting your time on a lead that's going nowhere? You following me?
Absolutely. That's one of the hardest things, especially for people who are newer in business, whether it's real estate or otherwise, to figure out, when am I going down a rabbit hole that's going to net me nothing?
Yeah. Or the guy who says, yeah, I'm an investor from blah, blah land. Okay. You're an Israeli investor. Boy, does that sound sexy. Okay.
Right.
Does that sound sexy? Israel, or a California investor calling, or I got somebody from Great Britain. They're putting together a group of people that want to invest. I mean, your mouth just watering.
Yeah, we used to hear it all the time. I got a group of investors. We want to buy 20 houses a month.
Right. So you got to be able to understand, and this is where a mentor comes in. You've got to understand when to call bullshit. Okay. And so part of your business plan is to take a sales course or 2 or 3, and definitely read a bunch of sales books, because what you're gonna see in all of those is what to recognize a good lead versus a waste of time lead, a bad lead, a toxic lead, a lead that'll suck the oxygen out of that week and take you off the road. So that is going to be crucial for you to have a discipline where, yeah, you've got to be working 60 hours, 80 hours a week initially, with your business. And if you feel energized, it'll be like you're not even working. It's not a 9-to-5 job, but you have to be mindful in that business plan of when you're wasting your time. How do you tell your guys, Mike, your people?
Yeah, it's one of those things they have to learn over time. Sure, there's a lot that I can teach them. We vet our people, and again, this translates to any business. There's a certain list of questions that you need to be asking your leads, your clients. And then of course there's actions. You may tell me, oh, I'm going to buy 20 houses a month, and here's my proof of funds, and here's how we're going to do it. And the plan may sound solid, but in practice, if you're not doing what you promised me, then I got to shift gears and, like you said, call BS on this and say, look, this isn't working. Things are going to change, or you're not my customer anymore.
Or you charge for your time as a consultant. That's right. That's what you and I have talked about. Yeah. I'm not giving this stuff away, all right, for free. And this is where, let's get back to the core title of finding your passion. Passion is emotional. I've always wanted to fill in the blank. And I've had a number of friends of mine at my golf club. And these guys worked in Fortune 500 jobs. And they were retired and then took some money and said, I've always wanted to do fill in the blank. And suddenly they're not in that safe harbor with a Fortune 500 company where they've got an executive system, they've got an office, they're waking up every day, they're following routine, they're dressing up in a suit. All of a sudden now they're out there exposed in the waters. And a lot of them just gave it up after a year or two. It was just too brutal out there because they were like a canary being released from the cage and being thrown into the jungle. And pretty soon that yellow canary stood out from the green trees and was eaten up pretty quickly. So, the passion needs to be regulated, and the focus needs to be on you generating income. And when you use that as a focus, that helps you discipline you to stay, and not only to stop from getting off the road and waste your time, but to be open to something that new that the market's telling you. You may want to, it's like us with our properties, Mike. We started out renting. We found out, hey, renting's good. Yeah, this is better than trying to flip a house because we're not getting our profit on this. So let's hold it, let's rent it. But then we started finding out there was a more lucrative aspect to that, which was renting short term. But we could recognize that because our orientation was to make more money, less stress.
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back.
If you enjoy listening to our Small Business Confidential podcast, we're sure you'll enjoy our first podcast, The Cleveland Real Estate Investor. We give outside investors an inside look into the real estate market in Cleveland. Cleveland has been on the rise, and investors from all over see those cheap prices and salivate. Our job is to educate those investors and steer them in the right direction with several years of experience of how to do it right and many examples of how to do it wrong. Find the Cleveland Real Estate Investor podcast on any app you listen to your podcast today.
Your comments?
Yeah. So using that example, you were in a position to take advantage of an opportunity that we all saw. We saw that there was a shortage of short-term rentals in the market, and the note that I wrote down here was we're solving problems. You said find a need in the market, solve a problem in the market, and that's where you make money. As you were talking about the passion thing again, Mike, I wanted to drop a quick story on you. So if you were ever to ask me, Mike, what's your dream job? I would tell you with a straight face, well, number one, rock star. I want to be a rock star. I wanted to be, we had a little garage band. I wanted to be a rock star. Number two, professional athlete. Now, I think no matter how hard I worked, I probably would not be playing in the NBA. I'm 5'11", and I'm okay, but sorry, I'm not going to be playing for the Cavs or anybody else anytime soon. And the rock star thing, that's 1 in a million. That's like winning the lottery. So what's my number 3 dream job? It's real estate investor. So I did have a passion, but I wasn't misguided. I didn't say, well, I'm going to pursue my dream of being a rock star until I'm 85 and die a poor man with, on Medicaid. So, there is some aspect to that passion that I did find something I really enjoyed doing, and I found a way to solve a problem, and I'm doing pretty well.
Well, but that's always the key to being financially successful in your business, is to be a problem solver.
Yep.
Because all you got to do is call AT&T, any company, any helpline, and the cable company, and you'll find that the ability to solve a problem as opposed to reading off a script is few and far between. Not a lot of people are good at solving problems. They're good at being told what to do. They show up for work, but they're not necessarily people who can think outside the box and solve a problem.
Yeah.
Our economy and our marketplace pays a premium for those people that can solve problems.
And for the risk takers, Mike, not everyone is a risk taker, and we've talked about calculated risks and, level of risk and whether or not it's risky to be an entrepreneur. Whether, we can debate that. Bottom line is that most people perceive it as risky. And when they go off, like you mentioned, people, that left the Fortune 500 companies to go off on their own, it feels risky for them. And it can be scary. It can be intimidating.
Right. Yeah. And I also think that good training that we had talked about in the first podcast, which was having a lemonade stand, having a paper route, cutting grass, when you're in your formative years as a teenager, going out, knocking on doors, not selling, just anything, but selling something that has a perceived need. I'll give you a good case in point. I mean, I was fortunate in a way how I was raised, but I'm going down that rabbit hole. But the point is I remember having a paper route, and this dates me. This goes back to the late 60s. And so I had the morning paper route, and my district manager said, well, we've got this contest. If you get 20 new subscriptions, you go on the jet plane, and we're going down to Miami Beach. Now, this was in July, okay? So I'm sure there are a lot of deals for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the newspaper of record in Cleveland in the morning. They probably had a lot of good deals on hotels in the middle of July in Miami Beach. But be that as it may, I had never been on a jet plane. This is like 67, probably 68, 69. And my parents, they didn't go on any trips, any vacations. And I would see these commercials, fly United Airlines. And I thought, man, I have got to get on a plane and go somewhere. So I was burning with desire to get these 20 customers. And of course, then I started knocking on doors in my area, people that didn't get the Plain Dealer. And then I started doing this usual bullshit about how good the Plain Dealer was, and you should read it. And how about subscribing? And it was no. Okay. So what did I do? Well, you know what I did? I said to myself, listen, I am going to figure out a way to get those 20 customers. I went back to the same people And I said to them, I will give you this paper for free. Just sign up. Okay? Because I just need a couple more to get. And here's what happened. I got 20 customers in probably 3 hours. Okay. The first bunch, like 7 or 8, just said, okay, kid, we'll sign up for it. Yeah, we've been thinking about it. Got their attention. The next 7 said, yeah, if you want to give it to me for free, I'll take it. No, that was like the next 14. And so sure enough, I signed it up. I started delivering the papers. Obviously, it cost me not a lot of money, but, it cost me a little bit. But then I went back after a week or two, after somebody in the downtown plain dealer office had verified that, yeah, you're a customer. Yeah, you're a customer, blah, blah, blah. Everything was locked in. Then I went back to them and said, okay, hey, thanks for helping me out. You're cut off now. Guess how many people got hooked on that paper?
I bet 90%.
It was about 90%. So that few people that I had to eat on the front end more than made it up on the back end plus. And
Yeah,
I got on that plane and I felt like $1 million. But the point was, I had a goal. I was driven to find this. I was driven to have an experience that I wanted a higher ceiling. And that's how I got those 20 customers. Of course, I got a brutal sunburn the last day. I got sun sickness, but I won't bore everybody with, the rest of the story. But you've got to set up that macro goal and then reverse engineer it. And don't get weighted down by a lot of mythology and come up with a business plan. Those are all important things, but your mental orientation. Your turn.
Yeah, no, I love that story. And I wanted to ask you if you ever heard of the puppy dog close, because that's what you used. We call it the puppy dog close. That's where you're trying to make a sale and people are saying, no, no, no. And you say, you know what? Here, take the puppy dog home with you just for today. And if you don't want it, you call me and I'll come back and get it. So basically you puppy dog close those people. I absolutely love that story.
Right. And that's the stuff that, here's the interesting thing about, even if you're a young person, and even if your initial forays into having a business doesn't work out, the skill set you're picking up is so important to whatever you do. Learning how to sell the puppy dog close. There's another close. I don't know if you heard this one, the George Washington close, and then there's the assumptive close, and all these different, closing techniques. But at the heart of it is the ability to listen as people tell you what they need you to be able to provide. Because when you're in a sales situation, if somebody calls you up, let's say for an estimate for contracting or a realtor or whatever, you've got to sit down there and gather information and listen to what's happening. And a lot of times, if you do that well and you go out and make a lot of sales calls, you're going to start seeing some common threads in those conversations that you have with people. And you know what? You're going to start finding out what the need is. There's going to be common patterns there. And, if you talk to 50 people, you're going to start understanding what the zeitgeist does. I know for me, it's like with our painting business, it was, you know what? I call people up. I need to get this done, and nobody's coming out to talk to me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's being a disruptor in the market. And in a business like contracting, simply answering your phone or calling people back can be as simple as that to disrupt the market. How many examples can we think of through history where a business, Blockbuster, that's one we like to cite all the time, is, they had this thriving business that, wow, how could anyone ever unseat Blockbuster? That's just how you get movies. And now look, they're gone. And you've got the disruptor in Netflix and all these other streaming services.
Right.
The other one I think of is shopping. Is the brick and mortar store now your first choice when you go shopping? No, Amazon has completely disrupted the model on how people shop.
Yeah, and what's interesting also is when you think about Amazon, think about what came before Amazon. It was Borders. And I remember when Borders came in, this goes back 20 years, 25 years. My kids were little, and I loved going up to Borders. I loved just walking through a bookstore. And it was nice about it. It was a huge bookstore. I mean, they had everything. And they had a coffee place. And they had a children's section. It was huge. Just watch You've Got Mail, the little corner bookstore versus, Wolf Books. And but what happened was Amazon came along and ate up Borders. They didn't eat up the independent booksellers. The independent booksellers, ironically, are thriving in some areas because people want to get out of their house. They want to go get a cup of coffee. You know what? They're not looking for some obscure title because they can always find that on Amazon, but they're looking for companionship. And that's how the market changed. And retail is going through huge changes with more online buying. But people, they want to get out of their house. They want to go someplace and look around and touch and feel the products. The question is, what do they want to touch and feel? What's going to get them out of the house to buy something?
Yeah, you have to listen. And like you said, you got to listen to what the market wants or lacks, find that answer, and either become the disruptor or, it's not always the first disruptor that wins either. We saw that, I'm going to date myself here, Betamax versus VHS. It's not always the first disruptor that wins the race.
Yeah, and then it soon got into Blu-ray
DVDs,
and
CD.
Blu-ray,
Yep.
and
right.
Now it's streaming, and everything. Look, everything is changing out there. Now I know that's a cliche, but that is one of the constants in life is everything is changing. And so, again, getting back to our theme, which is what exactly is your passion? And are you so wrapped up in your passion that you can't even hear what the market's telling you? I mean, you want to do this. You want to have this business. You want to be able to sell that great, muffin mix that you put together, or maybe, these type of, special shoes or artistic, decorations. And you will keep talking to yourself and find a reason to justify what you want to do, irregardless of whether it's going to be successful. And that is why a lot of businesses fail. Final thoughts, Mike?
I couldn't say it any better, Mike. And I'm just glad I didn't follow my passion trying to be an NBA star, because I'd be pretty sadly disappointed right now.
You'd probably be playing in Ukraine.
I doubt I'd even be good enough to play there. But
yeah,
hey,
you'd be playing somewhere, and you'd be like, getting out of town, or playing those Euro leagues or whatever.
I still
find yourself in the middle of a war.
Yeah, the only league I'm playing in now is I'm playing at the Twinsburg Rec Center, and that's where I belong. So save your passion for your free time, but find what that secondary thing is, that is actually a viable business that solves a problem, that satisfies a need. And that's what I did. I still play ball, but I didn't try to make that into my career.
Well, we'll end on this note. I mean, when you think about the winter we had, the January and February in Cleveland, which was more of a siege than a winter, 2 back-to-back snowstorms, dumping, 12 inches of snow. Don't even talk about New England, which got hammered. Then you got cold, rainy, gray, this, that. I found my passion 2 weeks ago when my wife and I went down to the Florida Keys. that was my passion, was laying, just walking outside and not slipping on ice, and walking out with sandals and a bathing suit and, a t-shirt. I mean, really think hard, everybody, about what exactly you have this itch. that you want to scratch. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to have my own business, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Very admirable. But that's just the beginning of the conversation.
That's
and
right.
Don't follow the myth of following your passion. And we'll have another juicy topic, not your sex life, Mike, but something juicy coming up next week. And we'll hope to get some of your BNI people on there. Talk about their passion versus what they're actually doing to make money. All right.
I love it. Sounds good, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Small Business Confidential. To support, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also add our podcast to your favorite streaming services. Everything is appreciated, and we'll be back soon with another episode and upload schedule. The person voicing the intro's name is Travis Reilly. Thank you, Travis. And the music was done by our engineer, me, Amari.